Would you dare to awaken the beast once called the leg breaker? Picture this. You're standing on a dusty trail, face to face with the towering Honda XR600. Tall, intimidating, almost daring you to try. One wrong kick on the starter, and you'll feel a bone-jarring kickback that can throw you backward. But that danger is exactly what forged its legend. The XR600 wasn't just another dirt bike. It was proof of an era when raw power, durability, and fearlessness ruled the off-road world. It dominated Baja, 1000, Paris-Dakar, and became the first choice of riders who feared nothing. Today, we trace the entire story of this machine, uncover the shocking truth behind its leg breaker nickname, and explore why decades later, the XR600 is still an icon that off-road fans worship. To understand why the XR600 became a legend, we have to go back to the early 1980s, the golden age of off-road racing. At that time, Baja 1000 in Mexico was the most brutal race on Earth. The Paris-Dakar rally was capturing the world's imagination, as bikes and trucks crossed thousands of miles through the Sahara Desert. Riders needed a machine that could claw through mud, climb rocky hills, and survive to see the finish line. Honda saw an opportunity to dominate. They already had the XR500, but it wasn't strong enough to take on Yamaha's XT500 or the European Enduros from Husqvarna and KTM. Honda's engineers set out to create something bigger, tougher, but still mechanically simple, so it could be repaired in the middle of the desert if needed. This wasn't just a battle for speed, but for reliability and endurance. When the XR600 launched in 1985, it was a turning point, a nearly 600 cubic centimeter single-cylinder beast, built to be the sledgehammer of the dirt world. And it was this unforgiving backdrop that forged a bike riders would both love and fear. At first glance, the XR600 doesn't look friendly. It's tall, with a seat nearly at hip height, a slim but long fuel tank, and a steel frame that feels like it was forged from a single piece of metal. Honda wasn't trying to make a showroom queen. They were building a survival tool. The design philosophy was clear: keep it simple, keep it tough, never compromise. The semi-double cradle steel frame could take endless punishment without bending. The long travel suspension swallowed potholes and boulders with ease. The wide handlebars made it easy to wrestle the bike at high speeds. But what truly set the XR600 apart was what sat inside its steel frame: the nearly 600 cubic centimeters RFVC engine. Radial 4-valve combustion used a unique 4-valve radial layout, optimizing airflow and giving the bike massive torque right from idle. This meant the XR600 could claw its way through mud, climb rocky slopes, and keep pulling when other bikes would bog down. Twist the throttle and you feel it surge forward, almost trying to rip free from the ground as the rear tire digs in and finds impossible traction. This raw, usable power was the secret weapon that made the XR600 a Baja 1000 champion. But this power came with a price. With high compression and a kickstart-only system, a mistimed kick could trigger a violent kickback that could throw your foot off or launch you backward. It earned the nickname leg breaker for a reason. And that same ferocity became its secret weapon, turning it into the undisputed king of the toughest races on Earth. If you've ever stood trackside at the Baja 1000, you'll never forget the sight of an XR600 flying past. The deep thump of its exhaust echoed through the desert, dust exploding into the air, and in seconds, the bike vanished like a sandstorm. The XR600 didn't just race, it dominated. For years, XR600 riders turned Baja into their personal playground, racking up wins and breaking records. Even the Paris-Dakar rally felt the XR600's presence. Across the punishing dunes of the Sahara, the RFVC engine kept thumping relentlessly, pushing riders hundreds of miles each day. One rider recalled that after hours of battling heat and sand, the steady beat of the XR600 was the only thing keeping him going. I still remember my first ride on an XR600 down a dusty trail. It felt like taming a wild animal. It thrilled me, but also demanded respect. Take your focus off for a moment, and it would remind you who's really in charge. To master the XR600, you needed more than muscle. You needed patience and skill. Many riders learned its punishment the hard way. A poorly timed kick could send the starter lever flying back with brutal force, throwing you off balance. Some walked away with a sore ankle. Others ended up in a cast for weeks. For many beginners, that was enough to scare them away before they even got out of the parking lot. Its power was also a double-edged sword. On the racetrack, it made you a winner, but on tight trails or slick forest paths, a little too much throttle could send the rear end sideways and slam you into the dirt. On top of that, the RFVC engine demanded precise valve adjustments and regular maintenance. Skipping a service could mean hard starting or burnt valves, a nightmare for riders far from home. This mix of raw power, technical demand, and its ability to punish careless riders made the XR600 both admired and feared. And Honda knew that to keep the legend alive, they had to keep evolving it. Starting in the mid-1980s, the XR600R was refined with a stiffer frame that reduced flex at high speeds over rough terrain. The Showa front suspension was reworked to land jumps more smoothly, a crucial upgrade for desert races where the bike endured hours of non-stop pounding. Honda also fitted a larger fuel tank, giving the XR600R a longer range between pit stops, a decisive advantage in Baja, 1000, and other endurance events. By the 1990s, the carburetor was revised for easier starting and smoother throttle response, addressing one of the most common rider complaints. Lightweight aluminum parts were added, shaving a few pounds and making long rides a bit less exhausting. Importantly, Honda stuck to its philosophy: the fewer things to break, the better. No liquid cooling, no unnecessary electronics, keeping the XR600 simple enough to fix in the middle of nowhere. These thoughtful upgrades not only kept the XR600 competitive for nearly 2 decades, but also helped foster a loyal and growing fan base. The XR600 wasn't just a race machine, it became part of off-road culture. In the US, Australia, Europe, and South America, you can still find XR600s carefully preserved in garages, treated like personal treasures. Online forums, Facebook groups, and YouTube channels dedicated to the XR600 remain active, sharing everything from starting tips, carb tuning tricks, to epic ride reports across deserts and forests. What's fascinating is that the community isn't just made of veteran racers. Many young riders seek out the XR600 as a way to relive the past, to experience the off-road world before modern electronics took over. They love the raw feel, the deep exhaust note, and the small victory of kicking the bike to life with just the right technique. XR600 meetups often turn into multi-day adventures, where legendary crash stories and heroic trail conquests are told around campfires with proud smiles. The XR600 doesn't just connect riders, it connects generations, with fathers teaching sons the proper kickstart ritual, passing down both skills and a spirit of freedom. But there are still little-known secrets about the XR600. Whispered stories of prototype builds and factory experiments that never saw the light of day. Even though the XR600 became a commercial success, its development still hides many untold stories. Rumor has it that Honda once built a handful of prototype XR600s with early electronic fuel injection systems, hoping to future-proof the bike. These test mules reportedly started easier and sipped fuel more efficiently, but the project was scrapped due to cost and the limits of the technology at the time. Another fascinating tale involves Honda quietly supplying racing-only kits to select privateer teams at Baja. These kits included performance cams, high-compression pistons, and special exhaust systems, turning the XR600 into a true monster. This might explain why some semi-pro teams were suddenly unbeatable in their class. There are also legendary builds in the community: supercharged XR600s, XR600s with sidecars, even XR600s fitted for snow hill climbs. These bikes are so rare they exist mostly in grainy photos or old forum posts, passed around like campfire myths. Stories like these make the XR600 even more mysterious and alluring. And as the 21st century arrived, many assumed the XR600 would fade into obscurity. Instead, the opposite happened. Stock XR600s started fetching higher prices on classic bike auctions. Enthusiasts wanted that pure experience, the ritual of kicking a big single to life, the deep exhaust note, and the raw punch of every power stroke. Beyond collecting, the Restomod movement brought the XR600 back to life in new ways. Builders fitted modern USD forks, bigger brake rotors, and even upgraded carburetors or swapped to EFI for smoother starting. Some transformed them into scramblers, trackers, or even supermotos, turning the desert beast into an all-rounder for street and trail. YouTube channels and personal blogs documenting XR600 restorations rack up millions of views, proving its legend still captivates riders today. The XR600 is no longer just an off-road bike. It's a time capsule, a reminder of when motorcycles were raw, mechanical, and demanded true rider skill. Now it's your turn. Have you ever owned or ridden an XR600? Do you remember your worst kickback, your most unforgettable ride, or the moment this bike scared and thrilled you at the same time? Share your story in the comments. Let's keep the XR600 legend alive together. Hit like if you love the XR600, subscribe to the channel so you won't miss the next deep dive into legendary machines, and turn on notifications to be part of this journey. Who knows? Our next story might just be about the bike sitting in your garage.